And we're live. Welcome to another episode of BodyTalks Live. Or if you're catching the replay, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm a little more dressed up today than I usually would be. Trust me, I'll be in sweats in no time. But I had a TV appearance this morning, which was so much fun and really just a huge step toward really getting to use my voice and share my message with more people. So it was so much fun and such an honor. And I cannot believe it, you guys. We've been doing these Body Talks episodes for 5 weeks now, I think. And this is in celebration of my book, Someone I Love Lives Here, which is available for pre-order on Amazon right now. And the book comes out next week. I cannot believe that. It went online on September 1st and the time has just flown by. What is it? October 11th? It is wild how quickly that time has flown by, but it's been so amazing and I so appreciate all of your support. I've gotten so many beautiful messages and everyone sharing the book and reposting. It truly means the world to me. So it officially comes out next Tuesday, and the best way to support the book is to place an order on Amazon, a pre-order. I am setting my intention to be on that bestseller list next week, and I cannot wait to celebrate with all of you. So thank you again for all of your beautiful, kind messages and shares and support. It truly means the world to me. So let's get into it. I am super excited for today's episode. My dear friend Rayla is going to be joining us today, and I know you guys are going to love her, and she just has so much wisdom and value to share. We connected over a year ago. We connected sometime when things were shut down, met through a tribe, a networking group that's nationwide, actually global, called the No Book. And someone put us in touch, and we hopped on a Zoom little virtual connection meeting, and she was just so wonderful. And she came into my membership Empower 365 and shared some amazing advice and tips there as well. She really helps women to clear out all of the overwhelm, the stress, and really like focus on what you want to be doing. And she just has a beautiful way of sharing this stuff too and explaining it. So to give you a little background on Rayla before we bring her on, she is an international coach, Federation certified executive coach and life coach, and an associate certified coach, and is also board governance certified by the Nonprofit Leadership Center of Tampa Bay. She launched 2 profitable businesses while working full time and founded a women's networking organization in Tampa Bay called On Fridays We Lunch to connect, empower, and inspire young professional women. And she has an incredibly powerful story to share about burnout. And as many of you know, I can completely resonate with that. That really hits home for me. And sadly, way too many women experience really heartbreaking experiences with burnout. So we'll definitely dive into that today. And she also says her life changed with this question, and she asks a lot of her clients this question as well. What if you stopped doing what you're supposed to do and started doing what you want to do, what you're meant to do? So I love that so much that, really, because part of the theme of my book is to burn the rule book, unsubscribe from anything that doesn't make you feel good, and to start to really tune into your heart, your soul, your body's wisdom, because that is really how we unlock our maximum power and potential. And is this working? Let's see here. I am trying to accept this. Hopefully we'll have Rayla here in a moment. We'll just give it a minute. Hang tight with me, you guys. Rayla, let me know if it's working for you. I saw the request and I pressed accept. So hopefully we have a smooth day with the tech. Rayla, if you're here, just type in the comments if it's, oh, there we go. I'm like, It's been working, and you just never know with the tech. So, but we're here. So happy to have you here. Can you hear me okay? Oops. I think it's just a little connection, a little tech issue. We're still, Mercury is still in retrograde, you guys, and it is no joke. As we saw last week with Facebook and Instagram, which I have a whole Body Talks episode that didn't happen yet because of that. So I think Rayla just popped off, but hopefully she'll be rejoining us in a moment. There we go. Okay, let me turn up the volume. It's always a little quiet, but can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. So big celebration there.
Definitely error.
What's that?
Definitely user error. I think that was my bad.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, like I was saying, the tech is always, Mercury is in retrograde, and even when it's not, you just never know what's going to happen with tech. So I actually recorded a podcast last Tuesday night with one of my biggest sheroes, and I was just beyond excited, also nervous. And of course, while she's doing my intro and recording it, I get booted offline. And my husband had like set up the tech and like left. He shut everything else down. And like I was using Mercury retrograde oil and just like sending all the good vibes to. We were doing everything. And of course that happened, but I popped back on. She didn't know if it was her fault or my fault, but we like had a great laugh about it. And it kind of helped me to just like calm down as well. So it was like all good. And I think that stuff happens no matter what.
Is this the podcast episode that's to be announced in the future?
Yes, it should probably be out. It's coming out this week, so within probably a day or two. So yeah,
Right.
yeah. And you could probably figure it out. I'll tell you, we'll chat, but anyone could probably figure it out if you look at my stuff. But I can't wait to share it. So anyway, I am so excited to connect with you here. And I was just saying, we met, I think, well over a year ago, connected online, and I just absolutely love your energy, everything you're about. It's so inspiring and empowering to clear out all of the messaging we get and really zone in on what you truly want to do. So thank you for being here, Rayla.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to connect with you again and speak to your audience. So yeah, I feel the same way. You have amazing energy and you're so inspirational. I'm so proud of all that you've accomplished since I've even known you. Uh, so it's like, keep going. Yeah, I'm glad that you're in my circle so I can get some of that aura on me.
Aw, thank you so much. So I love to take it back. I love talking to women about this, like really kind of the body story you grew up with, and if you can remember your earliest memories of having some sort of awareness around looking a certain way or any kind of pressure over, again, what you look like, your body, food, all of that kind of stuff, like where that first came into the mix for you, if you can think back.
Yeah, so I don't know, like back, but I have very distinct memories of my best friend from high school and I. Mind you, like we're all like pretty ripped. Like we had like when we look back at our photos, like at the lake and stuff, and us in bathing suits, we're like, man, like I can't believe we ever thought anything was remotely wrong with our bodies at that time. In your 30s, we're like, we really had it going for us. But I remember one of my best friends and I standing in the mirror, and it's this very specific moment of us like pointing out, like not on each other, but just on ourselves. And it was like the inner thigh and like just all these little, I mean, the littlest, tiniest, most ridiculous things. And that sticks out to me because it feels like kind of comical, right, as an adult. And I don't know where that necessarily comes from. All I can think of is something that you talked about, some expert excerpts from your book, but magazines, right? About like, I always had a teen magazine or those magazines on subscription. And it's not, I think, until being an adult that I realized the impact of that clearly, or like my mom would have never let me have them, right? If we like knew the damage that it was doing. So I think back to that type of conditioning, and yeah, just a moment of, like, we're not perfect, and pinpointing your imperfections and how probably detrimental that was to us, not like knowing it. Now,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So interesting. And actually, there's four parts in the book, and part two is problem areas. And that was, I can remember that messaging from magazines, like, first off, figure out what those problem areas might be. And then here are the exercises to remedy them. And yeah, I just, it is such toxic messaging that I think all of us got. And the other thing that's really interesting about what you shared too is with sitting around with women, with friends, it kind of reminds me of Mean Girls when they're like, my nail beds suck, my hairline is so, and it's funny in the movie, but what's not funny is like it's so relatable because I think as women, we're also very conditioned to like push away praise, to humble ourselves, to never brag or, be like, actually, I'm awesome and I love my body. That's so like, women don't do that often. And we're really conditioned again to relate to one another by bringing ourselves down or criticizing ourselves by picking ourselves apart. It's like this common ground as women that we share. And that in itself is like so messed up on so many levels as well.
I agree. I think of like a dramatic example. Let's say I'm like, oh my God, girl, your blazer is so killer, right? We'll even go, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, it was on sale at Nordstrom. Like, we can't be like, just thank you so much. We have to be like, I'm not better than you. I got it on sale. You can go, it was cheap. I'm not rich. Like, think about even just those little moments. We're so used to dumbing down. And I think it's all like connected and related.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's funny you say that because like my first thought is like for one, I'd be like, yeah, it's from Amazon. And for two, my thought would be like to explain to you that I have it on because of what my day looked like. Like
Right.
normally I like this on Monday. Like so
Right.
again, instead of being like, thank you. Yeah. So so much there and again so much to unpack, so much work to be done. But I feel like it does start by recognizing this stuff like you said too, with looking back at your body's story or the messaging you grew up with, just remembering those distinct moments that stand out and then just saying like, where did that come from? And, I think that's really where our power lies is first just getting curious and starting to look at like, oh, what messages have I taken in over the years and which ones do I agree with and which ones do I no longer want to subscribe to, you know?
Yeah, the what is it that you call it? The unspoken
Rule,
rule.
woman.
And I resonate with every single one listed out, right? Especially the problems alone, nobody else has them.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I read that, I'm like, oh man, like that's the one I think that affects us the most, I think, as adults, because it's just now that we're having conversations out openly in public about our bodies, about infertility, about mental health, about all these things that are going on all these years, but like behind the scenes and secretly, like your best friend might know, but
Mm-hmm.
not, right? And so I love that you are telling your story, something you say all the time. It's so important for all of us to be telling our stories. And I couldn't agree with that more because it just gives us that freedom to know that we're not alone and that it's okay to like discuss it. And we all read the same magazines, watch the same shows, and have the same conditioning. We're all standing there in the mirror pointing things out. And so what do we do about it now, right? And so I really feel like your book and content like that is going to empower the next generation and generations to come to like not even get on board with those ideas from the jump. I think it's really important.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I mean, that was something I wrestled with too, with telling my story and making the first book not a how to book, but a memoir and sharing my story. It's like naturally self doubt always comes in the picture. So it's like, does anyone really want to hear this? Is my story that remarkable? Is it worth sharing? All this stuff, and I was at a retreat last week and it was hosted by one of my coaches and mentors who I've worked with for years now, who I admire so much. She's been Oprah. She's done amazing things. And she's like sitting there saying that every time she does things, like the fear, the self-doubt, the gremlins, all of it's still present. And I think that's what's crazy too, is again, like we're all experiencing the same thing. With women, it's, over 90% of women struggle with body image or don't like what they see in the mirror. And, again, this stuff is so common, but we all feel like again, we've had a lot of messaging that says keep it to yourself. And, I share in the book too how our brains will show us proof always to back up whatever story we have. So that was also my story, is that it's just me. And specifically with body, I thought all these other women, didn't struggle with it. And so I would always see the world through that lens, until again, I started having these deeper conversations and getting vulnerable and putting my story out there. But yeah, our brains are really, really powerful and good
Yeah.
at doing.
It's exacerbated with social media these days too, right? And so I think like you're attractive, right? Like you look good. You look like you have your shit together physically. And so I think it's really nice that someone that looks like you, I hope that comes out right, that looks like you is talking about their journey and how sometimes you're uncomfortable. And it's like, I didn't always have this confidence. I think that's really important because I think with social media too, we just assume the attractive, fit people that are confident just like don't have any issues about body image or about food or about whatever. And it's just not true, right? And so it's this journey that is your story that allows you to, have that confidence, but it didn't just like come overnight. So I think, yeah, it's really important, especially coming from someone like yourself. Totally.
Yeah. And it's like with social media, even yesterday, I was like a little bit nervous about today and the TV appearance this morning. So my husband left for a while, and I'm like, naturally, what I did was scrolled through and, just the kind of scroll that's like not helpful, like the sabotage scroll. So it's like, yeah, we all do it. We're all human. We all have, social media has the same impact on us as well. And I think there's so much good that comes from it, like having really open conversations and more dialogue and, more vulnerability. But we also, again, see what we want to see. And sometimes I'll go on there and just be like, wow, everyone is doing awesome. And I'm here, doubting myself, sabotaging in my sweatpants. Like,
But else is doing the same thing.
yeah, yeah. So you shared a little bit about, that experience in your teenage years and looking back now. But I would love to get into your story and your journey from being in the corporate world, very, very successful, having like a great life on paper, and then deciding to go a very different route and really trust yourself. So I'd love to hear all of that.
Yeah, it was so funny because it's all, this conversation's so intertwined. I'm just now comfortable like talking about that experience, right? And then when I started to talk about it, I realized everybody is having not everybody, but it feels like everyone I'm telling is also having these secret moments of burnout and health issues connected to burnout. And it's really terrifying. And none of us are talking about it. It's so bizarre. So yes, I had, I guess, everything on paper, the job, the network, the partner, all the things. And I used to say that I felt like I could feel my brain touching my skull. Like, and that's physiological. That was a real thing. I didn't know. And I had a very scary moment of exhaustion, disalignment, and a lot of things that contributed, but your body will not lie. Like if you don't figure it out, your body will shut down to get your attention, or it will do whatever it needs to do to get your attention. And so I had a very scary moment where I basically like had to go get checked out. And when it's called the TIA, basically where you have like symptoms of a stroke, but you're fine. And they're like, just don't be stressed out, right? Like, you're young and you're healthy and all these things. And so what's your job? And I had a fine job in finance, but it's a little bit stressful, but more so just completely not the type of work that I should be doing, if you will. And so I was forcing myself to do this work. And I had just started the networking organization, and I just started a new relationship, and I was out going to every luncheon and coffee, etc. And I was just doing the most. And I would consider that kind of escapism for just keeping busy. And my body was like, no. And I would feel it, right? And be like, no, like, you're supposed to just keep going, right? It's going to be uncomfortable, but do it anyway. There's all that messaging around like hustle, and I call it now not hustle culture, but burnout culture, right? Just like, keep going. You can sleep when you're dead. Why aren't you a morning person? Just wake up earlier, just all that stuff, right? And so my body was like, mm-mm. You will rest and you will stop. And I remember just feeling like my thoughts had like flatlined, right? Because I'm just going all the time. Like, in this conversation, my brain is like thinking about 2 hours ahead, you know? And so it really was a wake-up call for me to get aligned with purpose. And that sounds so, like, as I say it, so kind of cliche, but what is my soul really here to do? Every luncheon out there, that's not really like soul, right? And so I think about Greg McKeown, I think his name, his book Essentialism, that talks about doing less but better, right? And I love that book, and it's one of the staple books that I encourage all of my clients to read. And he has a new one called Effortless, which it's on my nightstand. I can't wait to dive into that. But in any sense, it's you're doing where a lot of us are high achievers, are just doing the most.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that really accomplishing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, it was a lot about, I'm probably over answering your question now, but for me, it was about ego. So I had to do an ego check. I started going to therapy regularly, which has been like life changing, and doing a lot of shadow work. And so, why do I need to be everywhere? Where did this come from that I need to be doing the most? Why do I need to be in every group? Why can't I just be in the group? I have to lead the group. If I didn't see something, I was like, oh, well, I just got to start it. Like, where does that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Why
Yeah.
do that? And is that really fulfilling? And so it made me look at why do you need to be validated in this way?
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of work around that. And for me, it was ego.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much that could be like a day-long conversation, right, around like what that means, and shadow work and inner critic, and how your childhood, only a licensed therapist can go there with you, right? But how all of your childhood and life experiences and conditioning and education and your socioeconomic like how all that contributes. And so just dissecting myself, and I became super, super obsessed with like personal development and figuring myself out. I got into human design and like all the things, like, tell me about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself to be like an assessment junkie, but it serves me well to understand my motivation and then start to listen to myself. Do I really want to go do the thing, or am I doing it because somebody expects me to, or I think something else is going to come out of it? It's usually goes back to some ego-driven purpose. So I just had burnout of trying to please everyone and setting goals for myself that weren't really things that I wanted. There were things that like, oh, other people are doing that. That sounds dope.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we go on yachts. I used to like talk about yachts as a joke all the time. But it's like, oh, we're doing like yachts and online businesses and six figures and millions of dollars and courses and carrying on. Yeah, I definitely want to do that. And it's like, what? But why? It's like, because that's what you do as a coach, or that's what you do as a founder of an organization, or if you're going to lead women, you need to be really doing all these things to be elite. It's like that has nothing to do with speaking into women, right? They don't give a shit if I'm have courses and I'm doing all these other things, right? So why am I doing that? It's a perception that people that are coaches or people that are successful online, etc., have all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Work a full-time job, have the organization, and do the things, and show up, and do the lunch. It's just doing the most, and it's doing the most for the wrong reasons. It has nothing to do with anything that I actually desire, like deep down in my soul. And that for me is the long-winded story of like burnout for me and learning to listen to myself, learning what those boundaries are, learning breaking point. When I say boundaries, like I'm very aware of my breaking point, and I don't push that on anyone. But now if I even get remotely close to that way of thinking that I know that leads me there, I'm like, nope, stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a blessing, but
Mm-hmm.
hardly.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things there. And I can't wait to listen back to that too. So many things there and so much I want back. And even as you were sharing, like, you had this job and you had just started this women's networking group. So like a great thing, but something new, new relationship. And when I got married, I've been married twice. I was married for a short time. I got a divorce right around my rock bottom. But when I got married to my now husband, soulmate Scott, I was very aware of the stress from it, even though it was a beautiful time. And as I dug into it, because I'm like so interested in psychology and all of this stuff, so I dug into it and yeah, starting a new relationship or starting a new job or a move or getting married, all of these things, while they're amazing, they're really stressful. Like change is really stressful. And so even that, as you were sharing, because again, there's these messages of just like, oh, it's great, it's such a happy time, and like, yes, and there is a lot of stress as well that comes with it. And as you were sharing, like some of the things we say, like just keep moving, hustling, like or like mind over matter, and again,
And because you have the thing, so don't complain about it, because how lucky are you to have all that stuff?
yeah, yeah, and even like mind over matter, I was thinking like, yeah, our bodies one day will be like, nope. You can like hit override a certain amount of times, but eventually like no more. And I see that happen all the time. Even in the past few months, I've had clients or good friends of mine who get sick, and we just sit there and kind of go, of course, like, of course, right now, because when we need to slow down, when we need to start taking better care of ourselves and we don't do it, our bodies have to speak louder, until and I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert that says like, do you want the nudge from the universe or like the 2x4? And it's so like that's so accurate because I also had to get a 2x4 to wake up and start doing it differently. And it's like,
Be doing all these things. Like I'll tell a client that'll have an example of like my life. They'll just have moved. They're in a relationship. They're doing a business. They're doing this, and this. And I'm like, whoa, okay. You don't even see how much weight you're carrying around. Any one of those things is enough to take somebody out. And you're doing four of them at the same time.
mm-hmm,
Like getting married, as you know, brings up so much stuff around like communication and family stuff alone. Just all the thing. Money, permanence, like just is this really the person? I mean, so much comes up just in that. Imagine you're getting married and a business and you're middle of a launch and you're trying to write a book and it's insane. Like we're just not meant to do all of that. And so we're all, I feel like, pushing down the signs to slow down because, well, we just can't.
mm-hmm.
And then our bodies are like, look, you're just a one human. You gotta slow down. And if you don't, like, I'll show you, you'll get really sick. You'll have a freaking stroke. I know too many women our age having strokes. It's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Not to sound like super scary or negative, but it's just like I feel like that's a sign of your body just being like, no, hard stop. And it's happening. I feel like this silent thing is happening to a lot of ambitious people want to start talking about it more to be, you know, it's like not to freak people out, but it's like if you don't slow down, like your body will do it. And I have plenty of examples of people that I know that's happening to us, and we're all like healthy people.
Mm-hmm.
So I can like help someone skip that part. That I want to definitely do that.
Yeah, totally. And I love what you shared too. I'm with you on like the assessments, and I just think knowing ourselves is so powerful. And also what you shared about, going back to child, doing the deeper work, seeing a therapist, unpacking shadow work. And I think with this high achieving archetype that a lot of us have inside of us, I think for me, I've recognized that like that was how I felt loved as a child too. Like how I special and lovable was from doing good things, from getting the good grades, from getting the praise. And you do get hooked on it too. And then it's like you find yourself as an adult still trying to do all the things. And again, I think social media can really take that and magnify it because we all get fixated on these, the likes, the comments, the messages. And I still notice that, like kind of internalizing it as like how loved I am based on these numbers. And it's like it's constantly a practice of having to unhook from that, unplug from that. And again, it's like the ego gets its little fix, tug it along, and it's like unhooking from that because as you shared, like my soul doesn't care about the likes. Like soul doesn't care about being liked, but
Mm.
my self desperately needs everyone to like me. And it's exhausting.
So exhausting. Yes. Exhausting to the point of burnout.
So I'm curious for you with your own journey, once you hit that point where your body was crying out for change, like what did that really look like? And what, kind of walk us through I'm sure it was a really scary process of, shifting and making changes that again, sometimes soul wants us to do doesn't look great on paper or doesn't feel like the smartest thing to do. So I'd love to hear how you were able to unhook from all of the shoulds and really start to lean into get to this place where you're in alignment and really living a fulfilling, joyful life.
Yeah. So that was December. It's so interesting because I remember just sitting there and they're like, we'd like to keep you here. And I was like, no, I'm driving home. I was driving home to Atlanta the next day. It's just, you're sitting there and they're like, ma'am, we need to keep you here. And I was like, no, I'm definitely like I have plans and I've told people that I'm going to be there. So that's what I'm doing. So that was December of 2016. July 21st, 2017 was my last day at my job there and that I had. And I had grown that networking organization, started to monetize it, and saw it as a way to support myself financially. And so I just kind of quit everything. So I quit my job. I quit a lot of different things. I was just asked, I guess, or like told that I was in this leadership role for an organization. They didn't like ask me or anything. And I was like, no, I can't, like, thank you. But also, if you would have asked me first, I would have told you that I just don't have the capacity. So I just stepped down from some of my leadership roles in the community and put other people in place. So I was like, I can't take this, but I have somebody else that I think is amazing. That's been a really wonderful experience for that person. So I stepped down from a lot of different things, started to say no to a lot. And we feel like we have to be visible at all times, right? And so I'm kind of an advocate or believer in more grassroots in-person type of networking versus online stuff. Like that's why if you go to my Instagram, there's like nothing there. I just can't. But I feel like in person is really like where I hit my stride. And so I just stopped doing all that, right? But what does that mean? It means less impact for my organization because I'm not reaching as many people. I quit my job. That's like take away your health insurance and stability, financial stability. But I needed all that to really focus on what I really want. What do I want versus what makes sense for other people for me to want, right? So what happens when you start something like your Milwaukee women's group? Yeah, boss lady. So let's say you do that, right? Well, once you do it and your people are meeting it and they're connecting, and what if you decide you don't want to do it?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like, well, when's the next thing? And like, so you feel this now external pressure and you feel like you can't just listen to yourself because you have external, not necessarily noise. It's like you have real members and real people to service. But it was a time for me to figure out, how do I distinguish those voices and what other people need and what I need, and how do I balance them? And there's no such thing as that balance, right? You just have to do what's for you. And if you're in alignment, you will find a way to be of service to others in the way that you're supposed to, and people will get over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's really hard. Once you start something and put it out there in the world and you're serving people with it, it's really hard to let go. At least that's been my experience and the experience of a lot of my peers. So I was figuring out what to do with that organization, that luncheon. It was a monthly luncheon, and I started to do an annual social and some other events around it. And I was like, I think I'm doing this for other people. I think I'm doing this because the community loves this. But me putting it together in the background, it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Work. Like, anyone listening that's in your women's group, it's so much behind the scenes work for you to just show up and get the content out of it and the networking. But on the back end, it's a lot. And I had to just work on releasing myself of fulfilling others' expectations and line of, how do I serve myself the best so that I can then serve those people, even if it disappoints people in the near future. And people go stuff like pretty fast too, right? So if you just like, I'm quitting my group tomorrow, people are going to freak out and they're over it, on to the next thing, right? And so I just stopped doing a lot of things. I quit my job. I focused on my coaching business and how to how to coach through a specific business model, because coaching is a skill set. Figure this out. Coaching is a skill set. It's not a business. It's a tool to help people get from A to B, but it in and of itself is not a business. And so I had to, in that time, learn a lot about making money and online marketing. And I took a lot of courses and was really building the relationship with my now husband, what I want that to look like, and just decompressing. And it felt really freaking good to like not have to show up, because I had something every day of the week after work with some kind of networking event or something. There's always like, I'm spending my weekends coaching and like making email introductions, just that kind of networky lifestyle, if that makes sense. There's so much on the back end, right? Like, so our mutual friend Rachel, I know how much time that she's like, it's insane to think she's always emailing and making connections and thinking of people and giving referrals. That's super time consuming, especially if it's not like super aligned with your income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So am I going to use her as a mortgage for, like, no, she's just doing that out of the goodness of her heart, right? So listening to myself and kind of getting aligned with my path forward was what I did after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. And yeah, with Boss Ladies Milwaukee, MKE, it was an idea like 4 years ago, and we're going on 4 years existence. Yeah, I definitely hit a point where I was like, what do I do with this? Because I can't keep pouring so much into it, because we also set it up as like, this will be really fun. This is a fun idea. Let's see if it even works. And then it worked really well. And we
Right.
set it up as a money maker. Basically all of our money. If people go to every event, we lose money. But yeah, so it's been a very interesting thing. And I did open up to another woman who I was really close to. She helped see how inviting others to help lead, and that's what we're doing now. Now we have 4 leaders. And we're really vocal with one another, even like during this time right now, I'm in this season with the book launch. So I've been like, I love how you said, I don't have the capacity, or I'll say like, I don't have the bandwidth, and just being really honest with people. And, and I even see that right now, like I've had over the past couple of weeks, because it has been such a busy season. And I'm, you know, then I think about my friends. There's always like another piece. It's like, am I neglecting people? Am I this? Am I, like, again, we want to be doing all the things. But I think, again, when we're being really true to ourselves and like honoring, like, no, this is my priority right now. And also knowing that the people who are meant to be in our lives long term will, like, they'll get it and they'll understand and they'll support it. And you know what I mean? People aren't going to be mad that I'm not available to hang out quite as much, during or but it
Yeah.
is, when we're used to people pleasing, and that's definitely, I called it the summer of boundaries. Like I'm still so much with that, and see my patterns of needing everyone to like me, and what that shows up. So I'm still a newbie in the boundaries game, I would say.
It's hard. Something that I've seen recently that's just coming up for me to say here is giving yourself the space to evolve, right? So founding something in 2015, as fast as the universe is moving us all, just kind of up leveling, that same thing might not serve you
Mm-hmm.
4 years later, right? And so we're just not this, you're not the same person as when you founded this thing. You weren't an author, you weren't, there's a lot of stuff going on. You didn't have the same partner, like all the things. And so giving ourselves space to evolve gracefully with no explanation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, then I have to, so I just something that I just noticed. It's like, well, then I have to let everybody know that I'm doing this and that and the other. What if it's just like, I just need a break right now, and you don't owe anybody an explanation to do with your time? Because
Mm-hmm.
over here, I'm like working on a new assignment that I'm called to do. I'm evolving over here, and I don't even know I don't know what I'm gonna be wanting to do in a few months. So like I don't want to say like, oh, I'll be back in 3 months and we'll do this, because I don't know what's going to happen over that 3 months. Like I might not want to do this anymore. So I think that's something that I see a lot of ambitious people do, is not give themselves the space to evolve.
Yes. So good. And yeah, I feel like I'm a new person like every week.
Yeah.
So, and I used to be very like, no, I said I was going to do this thing, you know, even transitioning out of fitness to build what I was always meant to build, in the space that I'm in now, like that was really hard for me. I like hung on for a long time doing things I didn't want to do because I was like, well, I already built this. So, and yeah, it's like sometimes you kind of have to just let things go. Your story is very similar to mine too, where you almost just have to let your life unravel sometimes and like trust that it's all going to be okay. And, you know, obviously take care of yourself, make sure you're like in a good position, but sometimes we have to let everything fall away to see like what's next and what is really actually meant to be there. And
Right. You're on assignment, right? So you might get a ping for something, put something out there, and it helps. We never get to see the impact. It helps two people, right? Or it's inspired one person and they went on to do something else. And then you change your mind or you pivot it over here. And it's like, we don't know what the things that we're doing, how they're impacting other people. And so we have to give ourselves the grace to change and explore and change our minds, because it's not about us. Like we only see what's inside. The universe might be like, I had you do that for 6 months because I needed you to speak into Sally Sue over there in Idaho who's following you. And that was it. That was all that was for. But you're not going to ever see that, right? So now it doesn't feel good anymore. Well, Sally Sue and Miami, I need you to come do this, because I'm like, you know what I mean? Like you're supposed to feed into her now. And so I try to always keep that in mind, that I'm a I'm a vessel for the things, right? And so if something doesn't feel good, it's like the universe moving me to have that impact on somebody else in a different way. And not everything is supposed to be long term, right? And so when I think about things not being about me and me being of service and everything being greater than me and having an impact that I can't even see, that allows me to like move on and go, that doesn't feel good for a reason, because we're done right now with that for the time being. We don't have to like burn it up, but we can just put it in a bag and put it over there, and maybe we come back to it, because this feels good right now for a reason unknown to me yet. Or I never know. But I
Yeah.
go do this thing over here that feels good and let that go for reasons that I can't see.
Mm. So good. And I've never heard it put that way, because even with like not making it about us, sometimes I feel like I almost hang on to things because I feel this like responsibility. Like, well, I started this group, so all of these people are, depending on me, is kind of like the story I tell, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, again, that's for one, ego, because like you said, I mean, there's so much out there, and people will, if I shut a group down the next day, they'll find something else. But also recognizing that, you know, I love that quote about like every time we say yes, we're also saying no to so many things. So it's like, yeah, if we continue to focus on these things that don't feel good, it's like, I've never thought of it that way. Like, we're not meant to be there anymore. Maybe we served our purpose and now we're meant to be over here, but we can't go over here if our time is all consumed by, you know what I mean, trying to be in this space.
Right. It's like when in the coaching world, when people are trying to get you to be comfortable like showing up, on a live like this, for example, it's like, well, if you don't do it, you're not serving this, like somebody's waiting for you, praying for your words, and they're looking for you, like, and the longer you wait, the more you're not serving them. I think that can be like a little bit toxic of a message. But in that vein, I like to just be of service as a vessel. And so if I think about, I want to feel like so I pray. So I'm picking my words, but it's like, who cares? I'm spiritual. I pray a lot. And something that I pray for is I want to show up where I'm needed. And
Mm-hmm.
so if I'm supposed to let this go, then just help me see a path to like let it go and not feel any kind of ego about it, because it's not about me. That's like the hardest thing to keep drilling into myself, is just to remember, like, I am here to use my purpose, skill, calling. I feel in flow about certain things for a reason. Why do we feel in alignment and in flow? Because that's like sending you in a certain path and direction of something that's greater than you that you can't see. And so we're hitting our head up against the wall, right? Because we don't want to let go of something over here. And that's just us. So that's like getting outside of yourself to go, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, who cares? I might use that in 10 years. Or
Mm-hmm.
that you met in that group, it might come back. But that's been a huge thing for me the past few years, is just like, it's not about me, which is like the biggest ego trip, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally. It's funny, that just clicked for me. There is something I invested in 2019, like invested quite a bit. And I had always kind of like regretted it and
Mm-hmm.
found, why did I do that? It completely did not benefit me. And it only clicked in the last few months that that's actually where my book title came from. Like that inspiration. And like that in itself was just like, I could let all of oh, but I spent this much and this much time. You know what I mean? Like, in that second that I realized it, it just all was like, oh, so it's all, and I always needed to do that, get this. And like, and we don't always see all the puzzle pieces. I was like, wave that spiritual flag, because I am, I pray and I'm very spiritual as well. And I believe that like that is the more that I and surrender and actually offer things up and ask for that guidance, it's like that plan, the greater plan for me, is so much better than my little narrow-minded plan and my controlling ways. And the more that I do that, it feels better, life flows better, and like you see that you're making a bigger impact too and actually serving more.
Yes. So this resonates so much because I'm in a very expensive program right now as we speak. And this is a topic of conversation with my therapist recently. And then that goes back to like childhood and all that stuff, of course. But it's like, man, it feels like a mistake. Like you said, I regret it at times, especially when it's like a $20,000 plus something. It's like, could I have, universe, can we learn the lesson with less money next time? You know? And so I think, um, for me recently, it's we just don't know like what that's going to look like. So it might be that the only way to get that title that's going to change lives was to spend the 20K on the program. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, dang. And so it's just a blip though, right? And so I feel like the universe is like, if you would just surrender, it's the word you just used, which I got chills when you said it. If you would just surrender, that 20K is a blip. It's a blip in your purpose. You know, it's a blip in what it takes for you to impact, you know, potentially millions of people, you know. And so I think sometimes we're like, oh, but it took money or it took time or it took this. I feel like the universe is like, do you think I give a shit about 20 grand? You know, it's like, do you think I give a shit about that 2 years? I got like, you know, decades coming for you. If
Mm.
you just surrender and kind of go with the flow and like let some of that shit go. It's just part of the journey.
Yes, I love it so much. And I feel like I'm like receiving so much from this conversation too. When I checked in with you, I'm like, I've been letting the conversation flow lately instead of being like, question one. You know, because that is like that's my original blueprint, my original software programming. And yeah, the more that again I just ditch all of that, things go so much better. And it's like, of course, I needed this today. If no one else, but I know so many others are gonna run too and take so much conversation. So I could also talk to you all day, but a couple quick questions to wrap this up. So for one, as you know, the big theme in my book as well is burning the rule book. And I feel like you have lit that rule book up and really there are no rules, you know, on, you know, when you're open and trusting and following your path in the way that we've talked about. So I'm curious, like anything in particular took you a while to unsubscribe or unplug from, you know, something that personally was like a big win when you finally let go of any particular rule and kind of created your own truth.
Say that again.
So like any rules, anything that comes to mind. I mean, I feel like we've already discussed some of them, but like anything for you that when you unsubscribed, it was like really, really empowering. Anything you let go, stopped playing by, like in terms of rules or messages we get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a great example. So this, the online world, okay? So which you'll resonate with and your entrepreneur community will as well. There's so much crap that we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be emailing and being consistent and blogging and SEOing and doing ads and doing lives and doing all the doing. And also make sure you have all the energy so when you show up as a coach, you're like really bringing in changing lives. Woo! Right? It's just like I'm exhausted thinking about all of that, right? But what we're finding is people are like, I don't want to do that. Or the internet literally just shuts down, right? So again, that up leveling that's happening very fast. We had a whole pandemic. The universe was like, everybody needs to stay in their damn house for a little while, right? And you don't have a choice.
Mhm.
So I think everything happens as it should for the greater good of everybody, right? And so I think about all the like things in the online space that we're supposed to do, but I've had a wonderful business, not through social media.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know, I had a friend of mine ask me in the last 6 months, it was like, are you still are you still coaching? Are you still doing the things? Because I haven't like seen you. How are you getting clients? I've never, I just, I'm restructuring some things in terms of my automation and back end. I no longer do sales calls, right? I'm like, I've never gotten a client from a sales call. Always been from just showing up as my authentic self, like in a group or by referral is like my main referral is still my number one source of leads and clients. But it's usually me just showing up as my authentic self in a group. I'd say my last two clients were just like, I think you're amazing. You know, we've been on this call for an hour. Like, where do I, like, they don't need anything. Like, just here's my card. Like, when can we get started? Mm-hmm. And so I would say letting some of that go. I'm also in human design, a manifesting generator. And part of my purpose is to show another way to do things, right? Knowing that still, and knowing that that has always served me, I've still taken all the courses, I've still taken all the advice and read the blog posts and had the coaches, and I've still tried to be the square peg fitting in the round hole, and it just doesn't work because the messaging is, but if you do these things, it definitely works. If you blog consistently with the right keywords, factually we know that's going to get you visibility or whatever it is, right? And so it's like, what's wrong with me that I don't want to be on social media? What's wrong with me that I don't want to do these things? And so recently it's been this shift of like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. One, generator. Don't you know you're supposed to do it differently? And then I'm a 4-6. Just everything about my human design is so spot on. I'm not supposed to get opportunities by me going and actively getting them. They're supposed to come to me. Mm-hmm. That includes clients, right? So I'm not supposed to be out there like carrying on. It's supposed to be like, I talked to you today, and then somebody's like, oh, I'm looking for something. You're like, oh yeah, go look at the live I did and see if you like her. Like, you know what I mean? It's supposed to come to me indirectly. And I just refuse to stay flowy in that way. And I've been hitting my head against the wall for a while. Because, like, well, there's these proven systems, right? And so for me, it's like the proven system. I'm letting go of all the proven systems and the shoulds of all the things you're supposed to do because I've never had an online business prior to my coaching business, which I still would say it's not really an online business. It's just a virtual business, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm, totally. You have an online business because you show up online. But I just have a business that happens to be virtual and I should be showing up online, if that makes sense. But just letting that go. That's not how it's supposed to work out for me. And there's nothing wrong with me. There's something very right with me. Hello, you're supposed to do it differently and show people there's another way. If you would just do that, wow, you could really liberate somebody else, right? Because it's not about me. And so as much as I try to be intuitive and listen to myself, there's still like, I'm still watching Mariah Cause, I'm still watching Justine, I'm still watching people that I see, again, perceived to be thriving. And that just doesn't work for me. And I spent a lot of time trying to like get comfortable with doing these things that I just don't freaking want to do. And if I'm working with a client, I'm like, look, you've been trying to do this for a year, 6 months, however long. What's really going on here? If you don't want to do it, I don't think it's all about willpower or pushing through. There's something that's like you're kind of trying to hit in your head up against, figure out why you feel like you need to be doing it and what you could be doing differently. Because it's the thing different. That's your aha, right? You didn't do the thing because you don't. I had a friend or a client / friend it was about blogging. I'm like, because blogging fucking sucks and you don't want to be a blogger. Let that shit go. Because as much as you keep saying you're going to do it and put it in your audience and then you don't do it, it's guilt and shame and all these things. But you don't really want to be doing that. So let's let that shit go. And that's been, I think, how we coach others is usually how we need to coach ourselves, right? And so it's been a lot of just like letting that shit go in terms of how to grow my business or how to show up online to be like an online entrepreneur. And I think I'm not an online business. I'm a remote business that could show up online if I so choose. But my design, for example, affirms that I don't need to do any of that. It's me. And I have proof that it's always worked that way. That's run out. Organic leads for so long. If you want to scale and do all these things, maybe I don't want to. Scaling sounds like shit right now, honestly. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because now it's like we've all grown our businesses 6 figures and all that stuff. Now we're scaling and automating, right? So it's like as the online marketing industry changes, our own personal goals change, but maybe we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I find to be true a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I let go of the shoulds in my business and how to show up, because that doesn't work for me and it feels really bad. And I think I expend a lot of energy on trying to show up in a way that's not authentic to me. And it's like, when will you figure that out? Like, when will you let that go? And so that's kind of the journey that I'm on. Again, back to well, but you spent the money on the program and you did this and you did that. And it's like, so that wasn't the lesson. The lesson wasn't to like get the result that the program offered. It was to like name the book, or it was like you had to spend that much money on it, but it was for something else that you didn't see. And so you can let the other part of it go and continue to like show up in a way that feels good. Which is so ironic, because my goal in life is to like speak into women to help them stay flowy and do what feels good.
Yeah.
Do what feels good. So one assignment that we're called to do.
Yeah. And I mean, as soon as you were like, I don't love showing up on social media, but I've always, you have this thriving coaching business. I was like, that alone will empower so many women, so many people, but I think that's so common. And it's like, if you love it and, really feel lit up from it, like, yes, absolutely do it. But if you don't, and again, I think that's so many people. And we're right now getting this message that if you're not showing up there, no one will find you. You'll never get clients. You know what I mean? Like all these, like, even the retreat I was at last week, a woman who went to the same coaching institute, got the same certification. She said, the way that we were taught to have these discovery calls, it like never felt good. And I'd never heard anyone kind of like tear apart that model. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Cause it never felt good for me either. But again, sometimes we cling to these things because one person or, a lot of people told us like, well, you have to do this or you won't have a business. And
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Blogging. Like, I think I look at, there's one blogger I really like. So sometimes I look at her stuff and I forget that I don't want to be a blogger, but you know what I mean? I get really jazzed up by her stuff and I'm like, oh yes, like where's my blog now? But yeah.
Like it's just the whole time, right? Not doing it, still getting clients. The whole not doing it, there's a guilt. And I keep saying shame because it's a word I'm working on this last few weeks. But there's a guilt and a shame and a something there that's a lack mentality that I don't have it. And if I was really a business owner, if I was really making an impact, I'd have a social media following. That couldn't make any less sense.
Mm-hmm.
To do it right. But it's the should that you should be and I feel like so many people feel that. It's like, I don't want to do that. I know people that have it's made me question my business. Well, if I don't want to blog and I don't want to show up on social media and I don't want to do all these things that all online businesses do, then maybe I don't want to do this as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? It just means like I show up and provide my service and someone pays me, right? But why can't I continue to just do what feels good and let the other stuff go? Because if you don't do it, after we get off of this, we're all going to have ads on building your email list and like starting your social media follow, you know what I mean? And you were bombarded with the things that you should be doing if you want to scale to the thing, and that's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It's like magazines. It's like it's so interesting. It all ties together, right? Yeah, I'm like, all that we got now, we're all supposed to be entrepreneurs. We're all supposed to be coaching, and we're all supposed to have a course and a this and that and the other. And the only way that we can sustain it, grow it, and do the things is by doing these certain things to get there. To me, it's the same thing as being bombarded with the messaging in those magazines, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
Oh my gosh. It's the new problem areas.
Yeah, right. But now your income and your worthiness and your status, and so it just speaks to another thing that we're thinking about in our like at this age, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't you an entrepreneur? You should at least have a side hustle where you're doing it. It's like I have so many clients who are like, no, I love I want to be in corporate and I want the window. I have a client that is so passionate about working in corporate and being a mentor and example about what's possible for women in her industry. It's so inspiring. She doesn't need a freaking side hustle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally. Just Rayla, the sound cut off. I don't know.
can you hear me?
There, it came back, yeah.
Okay. So it's just those things, right? It's like all the shoulds over here. It's like, no, she should definitely stick over here and show other people that like corporate can be very inspiring and lucrative. And I'm like, it would take a lot for you to start your own business or whatever and make the same. But I'm gonna have, anyways, I'm digress, but it's like she's gonna have a beautiful impact where she's supposed to. But we hear this messaging of all these things. It's like we're all supposed to be doing it all the same way. Like, how come why haven't we thought about that for a minute? How come, yeah, I feel like it's just now that we're all like, no, I think I'm supposed to do it in this other way.
Yeah.
But like 2 years of feeling like shit that you didn't do it like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine what time we could have had that in that energy that we spent over here on that lack and how we weren't doing the thing, being creative and helping somebody over here. So anyways, we could talk for like hours and hours and hours, but
Yeah, totally. And I was gonna say, I love how you tied it back into the messaging from magazines. It's like I love when comedians do that when they like wrap it all around to like the first joke or whatever. It's like, ah, oh, what a perfect bow to put on this conversation. But seriously, so much value. And again, like I really needed this today. I'll even speak into with the book. The book was a very crystal clear spiritual assignment when it came up. And then I put it on my calendar. I was planning to start in April of 2020. And I planned that since November of 2019. And then, of course, we all know what happened by April of 2020. So, again, like the universe being like, hey, girl, I'm going to clear your schedule like you never thought possible. So I could write this damn book. But, again, I've never had anything that I've worked on that was more crystal clear. Do this now. And I will tell you, of all the projects I've worked on, I've never felt so supported in every way. And things, even if I'm putting together an email for something else, it's one kind of vibe. But when I'm putting together an email about the book, anything related to the book has just been completely different energy.
I have like full body chill. Like, can you see the hairs stand on my arm?
Yeah. And everyone's like that too. Everyone's always like chills. And,
I remember about wanting to write a book, the first conversation that we ever had.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when you're on a different assignment and
Yeah.
listen, and you're now doing what feels good, it's all just so easy. It's just coming together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And again, just to speak into that, there's been so many that I have just hammered away at and, kept pushing the boulder uphill when it's like not working. And I still get into those traps of something that I think should work, get it. And it's like a Rubik's Cube and I just like have to figure it out when it's like, why don't I just toss that Rubik's Cube aside and like do something? So.
That it like opens up and it gets flowy and easy and like you're like everything's coming together and this is the easiest, best feeling thing ever. It's like, yeah, because that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
That's what putting your energy into words on a blog. It's words into the book that's gonna like reach lots of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm you and I can't wait to like get my copy in my hand. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you so, so much. And again, thank you. I feel like I got a coaching session with this too, and just so much value and some really powerful reminders too, because I am in a busy season and it's all good things. But even that, again, I was just saying this yesterday to my husband. I was like, I like boring too. Like, I like some boring days in the mix, like, or weekends where people are like, what are your plans? And I'm like, nothing. We'll see. That's a good thing to have in your life. And, I value that. And I think I've been through enough to recognize that like you said, you kind of now know as you start to even tiptoe toward that breaking point, like, oh no, this is not how I want it. So
It's gonna be a hard no for me. Yep. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Our best ideas come in a time of rest, I think.
totally, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love how the reminder too to just be unapologetic about it. We don't need to give people explanations for why we're choosing to live our lives the way we want to live
Yep.
them. So thank you so much, Rayla. Again, I got so much from this, and I know so many others are going to be super inspired, empowered to take control of their lives and do what feels good. So thank you for your time, your energy, and sharing all the magic and wisdom with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Right. And thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you all very soon and wishing you all an amazing day.